Hi friends, it's Megan. It's Wednesday Devotions again. And first of all, today is Wednesday, so I'm recording this on Wednesday. Often I do that. Sometimes I record early, but not very often. So today is Wednesday, November 11th, as I record this. So I would like to say a special thank you to those veterans who have served, who have come home, those veterans past and present, who still continue to serve our country, whether they are active military, reserve military, or retired military. Thank you very much for your service. You are what helps to make this country great. Thank you very much. We are going to start off our series on prayer, and we're going to start today with active prayers. And first of all, let's talk about really what are we doing when we're praying? Prayer is our way of communicating with God. It's the way we talk with God. It's the way that we listen for God. It is our way as Christians and followers of God, not just Christians, but followers of God, knowing that God has given us life. It's our way of communicating with God. And it's a way that God has given us. It's not just something that we pulled out. It's what is given to us in our Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament. It is a way for God's people to communicate. So we talk, we listen, we share. It's a conversation. So again, today I said we're going to talk about active prayers. So let's talk a little bit about what that can look like, because active prayers might be a bit of a misnomer. You're thinking, I would often think sometimes, I would often think, well, aren't prayers always active? No, actually, they're not. And there's going to be a few times where we talk about prayers that are not specifically active. But we're going to talk about those that enable us to do an activity while praying. There are so many different things that we can do while we do that. Some of the examples that I thought of, first of all, coloring. I have a coloring book. Now, sometimes I don't always like to pray while I color. Sometimes, to be honest with you, coloring can be overwhelming because I see the big picture as opposed to the small one. And truth be told, I love looking at other people's creations, but I can never make myself believe that my creations look just as good as theirs. Comparison game, I know we've already talked about that. Another story for another time. So, coloring. I know there are a number of people out there who calm themselves by coloring, and it's a way of prayer for them. There are a number of people in our community I know. So, coloring is an option. Walking. I know so many friends who have either told me, hey, look, these are the prayers that I say on my walk, or I know of people who use walks to pray. They specifically go on walks in order to communicate, to see and to listen and to hear God. They have an opportunity to talk with God. They have an opportunity to listen for where God is leading them. So coloring, walking, walking a labyrinth. If you've not done that before, I would encourage you to find a way to do that. I do not know if we have any labyrinths in our area, but maybe you have some in yours if you are not in the Antelope Valley. I know that there are a few that I've been a part of. Specifically, in seminary, we had a labyrinth, and I've been given as gifts pocket labyrinths with that you can either follow using a pin or some kind of little stick thing like a stylus. That is wonderful because I find it calming to follow the guide of the labyrinth and close my eyes. And if I get stuck, then I can still continue to close my eyes, but find my path. And I think that's a wonderful metaphor for, hey, sometimes we're blind and we don't see what's going, but God has a way forward. And as we pray, we learn that way forward by praying, by listening, by hearing what God has put into our lives. So walking a labyrinth is an active prayer. Journaling. I know there are a number of folks who like to journal. I'm not always one for journaling. It's not something that I enjoy, that I'm good at, but I know that for others, they find it that's their best way of communication with God. And it's the way that they can use to see what God has done within their lives, how God has answered prayers. Maybe they had a specific prayer that they wanted answered a specific way. Come to find out it wasn't the best way for God to answer that prayer. And as we see, God knows better than we do. God knows how to make a life more full than we could ever imagine. And if we limit ourselves to only our vision, then we are limiting God. We don't have the full scope of all that God sees within and surrounding us. So when we limit God, when we ask God to do one specific thing and only ask for that, then we limit our ability to see how God is acting within a certain situation we are praying for. So journaling is a very good option. I've tried it. There are some times where it was very helpful for me, but it's not one that I find best works for me. So here I'm going to go through a couple of these really quick because they all kind of fall into the same category. Sewing, baking, gardening, knitting, or yarn work or fabric work, some kind of, often people will make tie blankets, the blankets with the little fringes on the end of them. This prayer shawl that you see each week behind me was knitted or crocheted maybe. Actually, I take it back. I think it was crocheted by one of the folks in Washington right after we moved, and it was a gift to me, and it sits in this chair and surrounds this chair and reminds me of the prayers that people gave and offered on my behalf before they even met me and before they even knew me. When we left Washington, we were all given tie blankets and prayer blankets as a gift for saying you are covered in prayer as you leave this place and as you find a new place to call home. So there are many, many different things. And I lumped all of those things together, not because they're all the same, because you and I both know they're not. There are special people in my life for them gardening is their sanctuary. That's where they hear, that's where they see, that's where they fully experience God. Yarn work, fabric work, gardening, sewing, embroidering often are things. A task that can be routine. And when I say that, it's something that you don't necessarily have to specifically think about the task, so you can easily open up your mind and open up your heart so that you can offer prayers. Now, when you offer prayers during those routine, I say routine, it seems so dull and boring when it's anything but that. When you do those routine activities that you could use for prayer, what do you pray? What do you say? Do you simply listen? Do you have a back and forth conversation between you and God? Here's one of the things that I have discovered. As I've done routine activities, washing the dishes, not my favorite activity. However, if I can pray during washing the dishes, then I know that I am making an impact. Not just keeping a kitchen clean for my family, but I'm praying on behalf of others, or praying for myself, or praying for a situation that I know needs God's attention. You can do that. You can go through the list of names that you know you need to pray for, or you want to pray for, I should say, not need to pray for, but that's a situation too. You want to pray for. Maybe you take just one thing or one person or one time and do your routine task and pray for that one thing or one person or one time. Maybe you take a passage from the Psalms. There are a number that you could use. One that I frequently use, because usually when I pray something within the Psalms, it needs to be something calming and settling. It's the phrase, "Be still and know that I am God." I will frequently use that to settle myself, to calm my brain down, to calm my mind down, to calm my body down. And I use that in a way so that I know I will stop and listen for what God has to say within my life. So, the active prayers, and like I said, it doesn't have to be. I would say all prayers are active, but these specifically, where you are doing an activity, like we said, walking, journaling, gardening. Let's see, where's the other one? Coloring, sewing, baking. We know I like to bake. So I will often use that as a prayer time too. So I would invite you to find a way where you can do your active prayers. And if you already have one, fantastic, let me know. Because maybe it's one I didn't think of. I tried to make a pretty good list, but it might have been the one that I didn't think of. So if you have one that I didn't mention, let me know so that we all can learn from each other. It's a learning time, and that's what I want to use it for. So any of those types of prayers, the active prayers that you use them for your prayer time. Use them to hear what God is saying into your life. Use them to lift somebody up. Use them to fully experience what God is doing in you and in other people. And as we close today, I would invite you to pray for all of our veterans. You probably have a special veteran in your life. Maybe someone in your family, maybe a very good friend, maybe a close friend. I would invite you to say a prayer for them. Don't have to tell them if you want. If you want to, fine. If you don't, then fine. But pray for them today. They've seen things that we will never see. They've done things we will never do. Pray for them. There are hurts they can't share, but there are joys so high that we wouldn't understand either. So pray for them. Dear friends, you are a beloved child of God, worthy of God's love and grace and mercy. Until next week, when we talk more prayers, have a good week.